I'm a little concerned because YouTube's not showing me as live. Oh, poop. Okay, there I am. Good. 5 by 5. Great. Wonderful. I wondered what was taking so long, and it says there's 22 of you out there. So, greetings. Christabel the Rainbow Knight. Excellent. Hey, Halsey. It's always good to see you around here. But did you guys like see the opening credits and everything, or did I just kind of pop on? I don't know, because hooray, YouTube and StreamYard fuckery. Fuchsia Cone, greetings. First 2 words, Bill. Shit, hold on, great start. Come on, what would this show be without a bevy of technical errors? I exploded on, so it was a hard start. So you guys didn't even hear the announcement? You guys did? Well, surprise is spoiled. I guess I'll tell you some other time. Yeah, that's weird. That is so weird that it just snapped on like that. But we're all here now. Everything's cool. I'll run the credits twice tomorrow or something. I don't know. But you get to hear Owlbear at the end tonight. So anyway, yeah, look, if you're just stopping in, if you're one of those folks who's newly subscribed lately, and there's been a lot of you, welcome. I love you guys all, and you are all appreciated. Pull up a chair. We're open, and I'm listening. Greetings, John Walker. You came for me and stayed for Owlbear. You'll get your dose of Owlbear at the end. Like fuchsia coneflower, or like a rhinestone cowboy. Have I ever run Tegel Manor? No, I have played Tegel Manor. I have played 2 sessions of Tegel Manor. I have been fortunate enough to have had a great DM for both sessions. They were separate adventures. Almost immediately, through random treasure, we found a helm of telepathy, which my character donned. And in original D&D, a helm of telepathy gives you total mind control. So I was driving the other players completely nuts with it. I was like, my feet are tired, carry me. Well, yes, he's right there. So yeah, but it was just 2 sessions. The first one we kind of explored for a while, left with the intent of coming back, but we were never able to get the actual group back together at the table. And the second, we went into a dining room. There were skeletons, and we got torn apart. We had our insides pulled out. I was that guy. I was kind of that guy, but we were all laughing and enjoying it. Now, one thing I wasn't 100% sure when Kyle would be back. We have guests coming next week. I think you guys will find it kind of an interesting look at some stuff that's going on. But I can't remember if they said Wednesday or Thursday. It may be Wednesday. I'm thinking it's Thursday the 9th. I'm feeling like it's Thursday the 9th, which will be fine. Module creation challenge. Make a D&D module based on Cannonball Run. I mean, gosh, wouldn't that be just a railroad of a module, though? No pun intended. I mean, you're literally just starting at one point and going to the next. That would be a fun one to throw at ChatGPT. That would be hilarious to throw at ChatGPT and see if it could do it. I wish I was logged in to ChatGPT. I'm going to try that later to see if ChatGPT can do it. Yeah, I mean, basically, that is essentially just Car Wars. Car Wars or GURPS Auto Duel. Death Race 2000. There you go. Which I think is probably the actual direct inspiration. People are like, oh yeah, Car Wars. That's Mad Max. No, I think it's Death Race 2000. Car Wars is way too silly to be Mad Max. All trucks need a recoilless in a turret. I don't disagree with that. Laser cars in kindergarten. That's a good use of your time. Well, if you guys remember, a few weeks ago, we did a deep dive let's read of Murphy's Rules from Steve Jackson Games, and it points out that in Car Wars, a driver, a character, if you will, in Car Wars, cannot unalive themselves with a 44 Magnum handgun. Every driver has 3 hit points. If they take 2 hit points, they fall unconscious. A heavy handgun, which the 44 Magnum is, inflicts 2 hit points of damage. So if he tries to unalive himself, he will be knocked unconscious. He regains consciousness when he comes to again, he has regained those 2 hit points. You're assuming there is a ton RPG. I'm not sure what a ton RPG is. Hail Michael Connor, unbreaded. Oh, drawing cards. Yeah, he can use the hand grenade. What are my thoughts on the Palladium Fantasy RPG? So Palladium system is used in all of Palladium games. I am passingly familiar with Heroes Unlimited, but even more passingly familiar with Robotech, which is what you American plebs call Macross. Anyway, that was for Halsey. I hope you appreciated that, Halsey. It is a really convoluted system. I can honestly say I have never played it. So the Palladium system, I don't know. At a glance, it seems like quite the mess. However, if I got the chance to play it, I would that might change my mind. That is correct, Viking Hat. That must be what happened. A Tron RPG. So I don't know if there's a Tron RPG. I would hope that someone homebrewed a Tron. A Tron RPG could actually be a lot of fun. So far, so good, James. StreamYard and YouTube wouldn't negotiate up properly. So, we missed a big chunk of the intro. And I was sitting here going, hello, bomb. Hello. Hello, bomb. So, on the subject of Battletech versus Macross, I think there are things that you can love equally. Like, you love pizza, but you love steak. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy both. Battletech's absolute end of everything. The galaxy is grinding to a halt. Your battle mech is armored with like sheet metal from cars. That expensive biphase carbide armor is no more. LRMs can only fire 700 meters. They're black powder weapons at that point. Your battle mech gets gut shot. Here's your rifle. We have all the Jameses, James. We have all of them. I haven't done the. I haven't done the. I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't gotten to the endorsement yet. So that gritty feel of everything is grinding to a halt. That any year now, the HPGs will fail. The last of the jump ships. Engines will fail mid-jump or when they get to a destination planet. The individual worlds' manufacturing capabilities will grind to a 20th century-esque halt. I liked that. I like 3025 Battletech. That they kicked it up a little bit and said, okay, maybe we can kind of start to reverse this with some lost tech when they introduced 2750. Wasn't too bad. But I also equally love Macross. And Macross isn't necessarily noble bright. If you know the Macross saga, then it's like Battlestar Galactica. The SDF-1 is immediately warped to the edge of the solar system, and they can only move at normal speeds. Even with those massive engines, that's still a 2-year trip from out beyond the orbit of Pluto, being chased by literally 1 million, with a capital M, Zentradi. The only thing stopping them from not focusing on the Macross, just doing broadsides with city-destroying reflex cannons, is that the Zentradi want the SDF-1 intact. That's it. The human population, they don't care about. So, yeah, it's not a noble, shining. Every time you blow up a Veritech, another one has to get made. They have to scrape together, more material to build one. We're just talking about science fiction and stuff in general. We're talking about giant robots right now. So there's your Battletech and your Macross situation. And then Heavy Gear is kind of like where I left off with Heavy Gear. The UEG had not come back to Terra Nova yet. So it's basically kind of like a Cold War that goes hot in a few areas around a planet where there's two polar zones that are temperate, like think Middle America, and a vast superheated desert separating them. But the mecha in Heavy Gear are a lot more practical, because instead of I can shrug off a cruise missile that otherwise could take out a city, it's more like I'm in the equivalent of a vertical gun jeep with a couple of light machine guns, a heavy machine gun, and a folding fin aerial rocket pack on one shoulder. And if I try and go toe-to-toe with a tank, I'm going to get obliterated. Tanks and aircraft still reign supreme in the game. It is related to the two Heavy Gear PC games in the 90s. There was Heavy Gear. I think there was an expansion disc for Heavy Gear. And then there was Heavy Gear 2, which was a very different game. A lot of Heavy Gear fans, and I include myself in this, were kind of disappointed in Heavy Gear for the PC, and primarily because they almost directly ported how a lot of weapons work from the MechWarrior 2 engine. In Heavy Gear, if something has an autocannon, it's like a machine gun. In Heavy Gear, the PC game, they just said, "Oh, okay, well, you've got a very heavy autocannon. It fires at a rate of like 1 round a second. Clunk, clunk, clunk. It just does a lot of damage." It took a lot of the coolness away. You felt like you were playing in a slightly modded MechWarrior 2, which is fine for MechWarrior 2. It's fine for MechWarrior 2, but it's not what you want when you wanted Heavy Gear, and I wanted Heavy Gear. DP9 have stopped doing anything other than war games. That is correct. 80s game where you rolled up a superhero, there were lots of them. Marvel superheroes using the phase rip system. There was Heroes Unlimited, Villains and Vigilantes, Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes, which is a little bit more like Top Secret. But of course, Hero System rode tall in the saddle. That was the superhero role-playing game. Oh, and there was, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game also. Yeah, DC Heroes from Mayfair, I think it was. But anyway, to DreamPod 9, they left the field. And the weird thing about it is, this is kind of one of those things that's so 90s. DreamPod 9 originally did the Jovian Chronicles supplement, which was for Cyberpunk. Or I'm sorry, it was for Mechton. But it was like a mobile suit Gundam. It was set in our solar system in sort of an alternate near future. And they had a few other going concerns. But then they released the Heavy Gear card game. They even actually they called it the original video edition card battling game, and it came in what looked like just a black VHS case. Well, I mean, it had cover art, but and they advertised it in Mecha Press magazine, which was a fanzine for all things giant robots. And then they there was so much positive feedback. People really wanted to see how this very stylized art by Ghislaine Barbie, like they wanted to know more about the world than just what they got out of the card game. So eventually they came up with the Silhouette system, which is an ultra lightweight, very generic system, but at its core, you can do gear battles. You can do heavy gear battles. And so that hit, and it hit at just that perfect time when people wanted giant robot stuff, but they're getting a little tired of Battletech. So there was a heavy gear cartoon. There were 2 heavy gear computer games. You would think this is a prospect that would have been poised and would have dominated the media landscape. But remember, Battletech got the same shot. There was a Mech Warrior cartoon. Yes, there was. You can find it on YouTube. There was a Mech Warrior cartoon. There was forever, and probably still amongst the fandom, discussions of a Battletech film or films or TV series or what have you. There was a toy line. There was a Battletech toy line. How many computer games before FASA shuttered? So many. So, what area should be? I'll come back to you, James. If only there were some way for me to see your question and immediately see it on the screen. Yes, the cartoon of Mech Warrior did suck. But yeah, I mean, back in the 90s, if you had a giant robot property, like a new giant robot property, toy companies would throw money at you. Computer game companies wanted to buy your property. And so there was a while there when it seemed like DreamPod 9, because they had heavy gear, and then they did their own based on the Silhouette system, the Jovian Chronicles, and then they released Silcore, which was how to design your own giant robot systems. And then they took the Silhouette core, stripped away any of that, and said there is a magic apocalypse that takes place in North America that radically changes things, and it's called Tribe 8, which I never looked into that much. And like I said, it seemed like DreamPod 9 was poised for greatness, and then they just fell away. And now they make a war game that nobody plays. I have a ton of figures for it over here. The smaller ones, the 28 millimeter high ones, not the big 2-inch high ones that Rapham made. So that was it. That was the end of DreamPod 9 as anything more than a small hobby company. No offense meant. Have I ever counted my minis? No, I have not. I would estimate I've probably got 1,000, maybe more. Anyway, somebody asked me a question and then it got scrolled up away. Sorry. Well, FASA was going to collapse anyway, James. FASA was going to implode anyway. They had mismanaged. Now, FASA is an interesting study in tabletop RPGs. They put out so many systems, they became like TSR, but it seemed like everything was profitable. How many of you guys remember Renegade Legion, the space fighter game? Like it was kind of like X-Wing, but it was in like the year 6000, and it was Romans. It was like a new Roman Empire in space. There were 2 acclaimed computer games that came out for Renegade Legion. One was like a board game, but the other was a full 3D flight simulator. Just came and went. They had Crimson Skies. They had everything Battletech, and then they were there one day, and then they were gone. FASA made a bid. I didn't know that, Michael. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know FASA bid for Star Trek. Yeah, make AD&D Wisconsin again. That's I should have a shirt printed up like that, like, you know, make it look like a "Make America Great Again" shirt, but make AD&D Wisconsin again. But you know what? I think too many people would associate me. They'd be like, "Oh, you're one of those TSR3 fans," and I'm not. Yeah, no, the FASA now is not the FASA from back in the day. FASA's kind of FASA went around and they snapped up a lot of properties. I bet you guys didn't know this. FASA had a Top Gun board game. It was like a board war game, and it came with little plastic F-14s, A6s, and MiGs, and you fly them around. And this was, I thought, was super cool. Just for funsies, they included stats for the F-14, A6, and MiG-28 from Top Gun for Battletech. So if you have the Top Gun board game, you can kind of start reverse engineering what real world weapons would do in the Battletech universe. They had another one that was a click case game. Yes, they actually did do a click case game, like Steve Jackson Games did, based on The Last Starfighter. And you basically had to chase Kodan starships around inside of a hollowed out meteor, kind of like one scene in the movie where you have to do that. Yes, FASA did screw up when they introduced the clans into Battletech. I thought that was a mistake. Axis and Allies, sure. Panther was a good mech. Slow for its weight class, but fairly heavily armored, and you could absolutely beat Stingers to death all afternoon long. PPC, SRM4, the heat sinks to jump and fire. Was it 585 or 464? I feel like it was 464. And they had such jokey mechs in there, like the Charger. 80 tons, 5'8", which means that like well over 2/3 of its tonnage is in that giant 400 rated engine. And max weaponry is 5 small lasers. Pew, 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 pew. Just a ridiculous mech. And then the urban mech. 232, but it had an autocannon 10. And all the armor, like an autocannon 10 and a small laser. It's basically just designed to stay, it's right there in the name, urban mech. It's designed to stay in the choked confines of city streets and pop up from behind rubble and deal someone 10 points of damage potentially at point blank range. Squad leader was one of those. Thunderbolt was one of the best heavies. Squad leader was an interesting game. Now, people that got into ASL, Advanced Squad Leader, just binders and binders and binders of rule options for every member of a squad Now, how many of you guys have ever played the Lonely Mountain by Iron Crown Enterprises? To quote the man, the dragon, rare and wonderful, huh? Lonely Mountain is a fun game. It takes a long time to set up and a very short amount of time for everything to go to pot. You have got to have a group that is dedicated to wanting to play Lonely Mountain and absolutely accepting that a flip of the die could completely screw an afternoon spent setting that damn game up. Lonely Mountain is to dungeon as basic Dungeons and Dragons is to advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but it's the same basic vibes. The problem with Iron Crown Enterprises MERP system, and of course Arms Law, Claw Law, the Rollmaster. That's what I was trying to think of. It's what I want out of a fantasy RPG, either game mastering it or playing it as a player. I want a game wherein players kick open the door, monsters kick over their tables, players start lobbing flaming oil, players draw swords, wade in, start killing goblins. Any system will support that, but the question is to support it well. That fight in Rollmaster is 6 months, not 6 hours, not 6 sessions. That's 12 to 24 sessions to resolve that fight. I don't want that out of a tabletop fantasy RPG. I just want to step in and hack and slay. Inglorious Bastards RPG because you're fighting in a basement. Yeah, Comproggy. Cyberpunk 2020. I mean, Friday Night Firefight. Now, I'm not sure how true this. I don't think Mike Pondsmith would just straight up make shit up and lie about it. He might have been, but he was like, yeah, we talked to people who served in the police department and said, they knew people who took, or they knew stories of people who took multiple 45 rounds and kept going. And then other dudes who got shot in the foot with a 22, went into shock and died. That's like the famous example. Friday Night Firefight, which is the original combat rules for Cyberpunk, and then they got streamlined and changed somewhat, is a fairly accurate system that way. It is a fairly accurate system. eBay has an unpunched Lonely Mountain for 80 plus shipping. That seems about right. I think it was 70 the last time I considered throwing my copy up on the internet. No one plays it when Grognard's all past. No one will remember it existed. If you're talking about Lonely Mountain, yeah, almost certainly. I mean, that's true of everything. Yeah, Euro board games never really. It's like, people saying, hey, you want to play Catan? How abstract are the combat rules? No, there's not combat rules. You just, it's a game of trading and so on. Call me when there's Ogre Catan. Call me when there's, Supremacy Catan. Call me when I can throw in tanks and infantry and power armor and tac nukes. Battle mechs. Orbital bombardment. I never, ever again want to spend an hour playing a game where you build a friggin' blimp. I have one of the boxes I have sitting around here, I think over here, is the Steve Jackson Games Ogre box, and it's like everything that you could have bought or gotten in a copy of Space Gamer, Fantasy Gamer, in this like 24-inch by 6-inch by 18-inch pizza box, starting with like the original just baggy wrapped edition of Ogre, which I have. Oopsie. That's the inset card for Battlesuit. I have here. Now this is a reprint, and they say it, but this is how it originally looked, and it was $2.95. And bless their pointy heads at Steve Jackson Games, that's what they told game stores to charge, $2.95. The Ogre Designers Edition box was the first place I ever saw the banana for scale meme, which was fun. If you guys don't know what that meme is, it's like, it may have started there, but somebody will put something huge on camera or something tiny on camera and then set a banana next to it and say, halfling miniature from Heritage, banana for scale. Or the Ogre box set, or they'll go outside and take a picture of the car they're restoring and set a banana on the ground next to it. A 1971 Pontiac Firebird in progress, banana for scale. There is a Wizards RPG, but it's made by Jim Shipman, so I say avoid. At least I think it's made by Jim Shipman. I could be wrong about that. Was the art by Vaughn Bode in that? So here's the rules for Ogre. This would make Kyle proud. That's, very, very thin, and it would fit in a pocket. Mage's Musings. It's open Wednesday. I was just about to talk about Steve Jackson Games Ogre. Empire of the Petal Throne was it was an interesting setting. Imagine J.R.R. Tolkien releasing The Lord of the Rings, but only writing it in Quenya and putting it on the players to learn how to speak it first. Technology governs strategy. The tank-type vehicle, considered obsolete by the end of the 20th century, ruled the battlefields of the 21st. Several factors led to the reappearance of mechanized warfare. The first, of course, was the development of biphase carbide armor. Stronger than any steel, it was also so light that even an air-cushioned vehicle could carry several centimeters of protection. The equivalent of a ton of TNT was needed to breach even this much BPC armor, which meant that, in practice, nothing less than a tactical nuclear device was likely to be effective. Infantry, which had for a time eclipsed the tank, declined in importance. Although an infantryman could carry and direct a tactical nuclear missile, he had to be extremely and expensively protected to survive on the nuclear battlefield. Thus, the powered suit was developed. 4 centimeters of BPC, jet-equipped, it could guard a man for about a week in increasing discomfort from shrapnel, background radiation, and biochem weapons. However, the cost of equipping infantry reduced their value. They were still more flexible and maneuverable than armor, and now they were almost as fast, but they were no longer cheaper. Long-range nuclear missiles, which had been expected to make a mockery of conventional operations, likewise declined in value as jamming technology and laser countermeasures improved. Without satellite guidance, no missile could hit anything less than city-sized at more than 30 kilometers, and no combatant could keep a spy satellite operational for over an hour. Missiles big enough to carry jam-proof guidance systems were sitting ducks for big laser batteries. For although lasers proved too temperamental and fragile for battlefield use, they were fine as permanent AA units defending rear areas. Thus, the tank-type vehicle, fast, heavily armed and armored, able to break through enemy positions and exploit disorganization, resumed wide use. And once again, planners fretted over priorities. More guns, more armor, more speed, increase one, and lose on the others. Increase all, build fewer units. Some interesting compromises appeared. The 21st century infantryman, especially with a later heavy-powered suit, was a tank in its own rights, at least by 20th century standards. The armed hovercraft or ground effect vehicle, GEVs, equipped with multi-leaf spring skirts for broken ground, could make 150 kilometers per hour. That's about 90 in Freedom units. And nearly 200 when on water. Conventional tanks were slower but tougher. All fired tactical nuclear shells. The ultimate development of the tank weapon, though, was the cybernetic attack vehicle. The original tanks had terrorized unsophisticated infantry. The cyber tanks terrorized everyone, and with good reason. They were bigger, up to 50 meters, faster. Hovercraft models proved too vulnerable, but atomic-powered treads moved standard units at 90 kilometers per hour or better, and heavily armed, some had firepower equal to an armor company. And 2 to 3 meters of BPC armor made them nearly unstoppable. What made the cyber tank horrifying, though, was its literal inhumanity. No crew were carried. Each unit was wholly computer-controlled. Although true mechanical intelligence had existed as early as 2010, fully automated factories and military installations were in wide use by the middle of the century. The cyber tanks were the earliest independent mobile units, the first true robots. Once the first cyber tanks had proved their worth, development was rapid. The great war machines aroused a terrified sort of fascination. Human warriors devoutly hoped to never combat them and preferred to keep a respectful distance, like several kilometers even from friendly ones. They were just too big. One fact more than anything points up the feeling that developed towards a cyber tank. Unlike other war vehicles, there were newer ones called she. Friendly units of the speaker's acquaintance were called he, others it, and the term cyber tank was rarely used. People had another name for the big war machines, one drawn from the early Combine units and, before that, from dark myth. They were called ogres. So there you go. A fun little piece of fluff introducing the beginnings of the game. Now, obviously, we don't have ogres running around battlefields now. Keith Laumer himself thought that by now we'd have at least semi-sentient tanks ruling over the battlefields. I will point out that Steve Jackson Games actually did seek out the Laumer estate to try and let them call the game Bolo, but they passed on it. And they said, okay, fine, and went with Ogre. John Ringo sort of disappeared in with his last Centurion books. It makes me wonder. Yes, the Hellbore was basically, it sucked water out of the air, turned it into heavy water in its reactor, froze it into essentially a deuterium icicle, compressed it to super denseness, and then fired basically a belch out of its reactor, encasing it in a shell of plasma. And it could do that at a rate of about 200 rounds a minute, which meant that it could direct megatons of fire out of one of its hellbores. The last Bolos built in the Human Melkon War, according to the people who wrote additional stuff, were the Mark 33 planetary siege units. At least according to the designers, a Mark 33 could be placed on, say, you've got a planet with a satellite like the moon. You could put it up there, and essentially it could lay siege to the entire planet. You wouldn't launch satellites. You wouldn't send ships out in space. You soon wouldn't have any strategic targets. Or you could put it on the planet and it could just drive around constantly. I think in their lift shuttles, basically they had reusable drop pods. The Mark 33 Bolos were capable of making hypersonic speeds because they had anti-gravity for them at that point. Why they just didn't have anti-gravity for the Bolos as well, I don't understand, but a great introduction to Ogre that would make a great world to write a Space Marine story in. Sure, it absolutely would. And it, I have the rule book here for I have the rule book here for Battlesuit, which is the powered armor guys. Is there a little bit of fluff text in there? Not so much. It just says it's a two-player game of combat between men in powered armor suits, which greatly enhances their speed in combat. The infantry of 2085 saw nuclear projectiles and electronic warfare devices, but they are still the units that can take and hold ground while nothing else can. And then it just kind of launches into scale and whatnot, etc. So there's not much in the way of fluff text in Battlesuit. Now, interestingly enough, Battlesuit was originally published in the Space Gamer Fantasy Gamer. So even if you can't find an original set of Battlesuit rules, if you go, let's look here. Let me see. Issue 59 is what you want. And here is one. Well, I mean, it's $30 on eBay. A copy of the Space Gamer with an unpunched copy of Battlesuit in it that includes the counters and the map and the rules, obviously. $30 on eBay if you want a copy of Battlesuit. Now, if we go to we look up Steve Jackson Games Battlesuit. Well, that's not too bad. Cost you a little less here. Here's a copy. They are punched, but it looks like... Wait, is that the repro? I can't tell. Let's see. This is funny. It is cut. It says it's uncut, and literally all of the counters are in baggies. But yeah, there it is. You can get the game in a click case for $4.99 on well, it's $4.99 for a starting bid. There's a brand new one that is in shrink wrap that has to be the reprint for $14.99. So your mileage may vary. I mean, there's a copy of the magazine for $17 plus 6 shipping, $18.99 for a copy of Battlesuit. And then you could use any hex map, or you could even go with rulers and any sort of sci-fi. You could use Tau miniatures from 40K and Space Marines. Battle Droids was FASA pre-Battletech. That is correct. And they came with the very first Battle Droids came with metal miniatures. And when you lost an arm or a leg or your unit's head, you literally just took them off the mini. And then they included 2 Shadowhawk, or maybe it was Griffins, 2 little plastic models. They were from 20th Century imports, so it was the Bigfoot or the Round Facer from Fang of Sun Dugram. And you'd put those together and you'd use those as units to duel with. You called up Steve Jackson and talked to him. That's awesome. That in early TSR days, you could do that. I think Tim Kask got his job at TSR. He called TSR to ask a rules question. Ended up talking on the phone to Gary, ended up playing Dungeons and Dragons with Gary for hours over the phone, all in the same call. And then by the end of it, wound up being hired at TSR. Some random Steve Jackson from the phone book. Hey, I really love Ogre. I'm a fan of Shrek also. Someone reaching out to me. Someone was asking me what BBEG means. It was my daughter, actually. Good evening, Joshua Garlock. Must have been a very pricey phone bill. Yeah, it probably was, because I mean, back then you could get like, I remember back in the 80s when we moved to Florida. So I live in the Orlando Metroplex, which actually encompasses a lot of towns and cities. I mean, they don't consider themselves part of Orlando. There's Altamont, there's Winter Park, there's Sanford, there's Pine Hills, Crime Hills, Bithlo, and etc. Back in the 80s when we first moved here, a call to Winter Park was a long distance phone call. It would literally cost you like 10 cents a minute to talk to the next neighborhood over. It was crazy. Thrifty Steve, Altamont Springs, that's right. Took another 30 years before people were able to make money playing D&D again. I do okay. I do corporate team building. with Dungeons and Dragons. And I've worked for Amazon, and I have a law firm, a local law firm that wants to hire my services. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And yes, I do charge for it because my time is valuable. Now, if people wanted to reward, if they were like, could you please come and run a D&D game for us? Please, pretty please. We'll give you money. I'd say absolutely. But I would not if somebody said, hey, I'd really like to try D&D, I'd say, well, hey, you can join me on Discord. And I wouldn't say, well, break out your credit card. Yes, Joshua, guide here. Let me see. Guidekey.com. You can check out guidekey.com if you are interested in playing some corporate D&D type events with me DMing. You can reach out to me through Guidekey. Am I telling you the IT crowd was telling the truth? Yes. All of the things that the IT crowd dealt with in the office, I'm not talking about the zany subplots, the guy jumping out the window, and etc. To the best of my knowledge, Drone Swarm, no, it doesn't. But yeah, the whole, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? That's, this box is the internet. All that Jasmine Taz. Yes, that's very true. No. Amazon was a lot of fun. They were all programmers for AWS, and they wanted to play some D&D. I mean, I was very fun. It was literally, I just kind of had to go through their HR department and convince them that it was a good idea. And so we played. At first, they thought I meant the employees' children, that I would be playing a game for 8 to 10-year-olds. Because the lady I was talking to had no idea. She was very nice. She was very polite. Once she got it up, once she got it up in her head, and she understood what D&D was, True story. Service call, office keyboard, or keyboard not working, office key peed in. Oh, the worst keyboard story. I got to tell you this. There's a very gifted programmer that worked for us. There was a very big language barrier. She was Vietnamese, middle-aged. Her name was Boi, B-O-I, Nguyen. She left a message that I had a difficult time understanding. But I divined that her keyboard wasn't working. Now, the desks had those trays that pull out, that you put the keyboard on. And I went to her office, and I knocked on the door, and I said, "Hi, you're having a keyboard problem." And she said, "Yes, I think." And so I sat down, and the keyboard's not there. The keyboard tray isn't there. The spring-loaded keyboard tray that you can rotate out of the way wasn't there. People keep their keyboards on them and then move them out of the way. I grab the tray, I pull it out. She had spilled an entire cup of tea onto her keyboard, which is why it wasn't working. And these compact Presario keyboards had drain holes in them, so it had poured out into the keyboard tray, and the violence of the pivot arm popping into place when I pulled it underneath, splashed her tea all over my lap. She just said on the message, keyboard, my keyboard doesn't work. I'll be polite and say that that's the way she said it. Just, my keyboard doesn't work. Her keyboard didn't work because she had spilled an entire Oh, it was ice cold, Kabuki Kid. It was ice cold. So I'm sitting there now, and for those of you who weren't around doing IT and office work in the 90s, your uniform, essentially, were beige Dockers and a dark earth tone shirt. So I now, across my lap, am wearing cold tea. I did everything I could to not start yelling at Boy. I stood up, unplugged her keyboard, plugged her new keyboard in. This was PS2, so I told her, you'll have to turn your computer off and turn it back on for the keyboard to work. And holding the keyboard across the place it had stained, I walked back to my workstation. My office, rather. I walked back to my office on the other side of the building and apparently closed the door behind me so hard that the entire suite heard it, and threw the keyboard into my trash can so hard that the entire suite heard it. I go to close the ticket. The customer has updated. New keyboard not work. I pick up the phone and I said, Boy, turn your computer off and turn it back on. And she said something about not being able to do that because of what she was working on. Then, with cold tea soaked into my underwear now, I walked her through how to use the mouse to save the work that she had in Extra 32, which was a terminal program. I said, now turn your computer off. I am closing the ticket. If you have any more problems, call Eric. I'm going home to change clothes. And I drove the 15 minutes back to home and came back. And when we were going over tickets the next morning, I said, I explained to everyone what had happened, and there were gasps of disgust and laughs and so on. And I said, so there's one for our binder, for our handbook we're building of ops. If Boy Nguyen calls and says that her keyboard's not working, don't sit down, stand to the side and gently pull her keyboard tray out and make sure it's not full of tea. So there you go. That's a little IT, the IT department, or the IT crowd story from me to you. I have two mechanical keyboards. I have the a Red Dragon that I use here. There's no keypad. I'm not crazy about this keyboard. It has a little bit of flakiness in it that it picks up errant key presses. I'm loath to use it because I'm afraid one night it's going to go all IG 11 on me and go, I will initiate self-destruct. Because I have been typing on this thing, doing studio work on it, and just the randomest shit starts happening. Like I was like Control Alt and delete and weird stuff just at random. My main keyboard over there, which Kyle has heard me type on before when I've been talking to, is an IBM Model M buckling spring mechanical keyboard. It sounds like an M60 machine gun on full rock and roll when I get rolling up to 60 to 75 words a minute. I love that thing to death. You want to talk about positive feedback? This will throw your fingers up in the air as you type on it. I love that keyboard. I want to invent strip poker RPGs. I wouldn't invent a strip poker RPG or an RPG that uses strip poker mechanic, but I mean, I'm not a moral busybody. If your game has a little bit of TNA in it, then that's fine. As long as it's not the central focus of the RPG, you know? Like I have said before, I don't want to game that out at the table, but if there's an image or a description in the book or something like that, and it's not like Fatal or the book of erotic fantasy, or nymphology or something like that, if it's just there, that's fine. Alan, Model M represent. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats or anything from you guys. Who killed Loth? I've never gotten to I've never gotten to play the GDQ series from a Dungeon Master standpoint. I've run it twice. One group went back to Jeff, regrouped, fought some giants in the streets of Gorna because it had gotten that bad. And we didn't have a bunch of people who could make it one night, so we played an alternate game, and that became the main campaign. And then I had another party that got TPK'd in G2. Was the dungeon... okay, so funny thing about the Dungeon Delver. I wanted an email that was separate from my personal email from my website, the Delver. So I went to Microsoft's Hotmail. It was not yet MSN Mail. It was still Hotmail. It was its own domain by that point. When I first started using Hotmail, it was like some domain name /Hotmail / your mail account. And that's what I used for my mail account for a long, long, long time. And I kind of wish I still had access to that mail account, but it doesn't matter now. But so I wanted something really cool. So I wanted, I was creating a new email, sitting at work, not doing work. So I said, how about the Dungeon Master? Oh, no, that's already been taken. The Dungeon Dweller, that's already been taken. Master Dungeon, already been taken. I tried every combination of dungeon and something, and they were all taken. And finally, I said, what about the Dungeon Delver? Well, the Dungeon Delver at hotmail.com was not taken. So my website became The Delver's Dungeon, and I became the Dungeon Delver. Now you know. Now you know. Couldn't take someone with candy at Hotmail. Yeah, it was a little. I remember telling people when email addresses were uncommon. I used to trade email addresses with people just to have somebody to use email with. The further away they were, the better. I was floored that I could send an email and it would transmit over UUCP and get to them in a day. And I'd get a response back sometime in the same day. But yeah, I would get giggles when I would say, oh, I'm bsylvia@hotmail.com. Or was it WSL? I don't remember. Hotmail? Sean, this is a pop filter. If I didn't have this on, the S's, P's, T's, Z's, and everything else, it would be a lot harsher sounding. So this basically intercepts the harsh high end of what I'm saying. I mean, the sock kind of does the same thing too. So it's kind of a double filter thing. Here, see? Let's see if I can do this without knocking my mic off. Hang on a second. Me do this, and I'll know in a New York minute if I have messed up. So I'm going to move the pop filter. Do I sound any different now? Tell me if I sound different, Sean. Do I sound different? I'll tell you guys a funny radio story I heard, so I don't sound different. So there's this, the sock, which is on it. So let me pull that down a little bit. I'm going to be super careful because this can unplug the cable in the back. So I'll just do this. Now do I sound different? Does this sound different? Ta-ta-ta. Super. It doesn't sound different, huh? Well, and when I first got this stuff, people were like, oh, that sounds a lot better. You sound more mellow. So, huh. And it may be because I'm using voice meter now. It may be because it looks cool. So here's a story I heard from a guy who was he was involved in radio. I knew him back in the day, back in the 90s. Joshua heard a difference. You hear the S a bit more, okay? Anyway, he worked in radio. I knew him back in the 90s. He was affiliated with a radio station here in town. And so we're hanging out. And I said, so tell me a crazy radio station story. And he said, crazy radio station story. Okay, here we go. Worked at a station. Won't tell you where. He was here in Florida, but that's all I'll say. And one day, the mic in the booth, the main broadcast booth. Take care, Tunkatod. Oh, someone asked. Yes, this is a blue snowball. This is a blue snowball mic. It is the budget version, so like it doesn't have an on switch. Obviously it doesn't have a gain knob on it, but it works fine. Anyway, so if you'd asked me that about 10 years ago, I could have filled your cup up, Michael. So he says one day, like all the audio checks it gradually got worse. It like started and it fell off a cliff where the audio got progressively more muffled. They pulled the board apart. All right. They unplugged the mic. They plugged the mic back in. They tore the console to pieces trying to find the problem. And they finally said, well, we know this is like the favored mic. It was an expensive mic. Let's take a look at it. They pull all the filters off and take it apart. The thing was packed full of cocaine. The DJs had been doing so much cocaine, it was falling off their faces and blowing back out of their mouths, and it eventually just congested the pickup mechanism for the microphone. So that was what happened. John David been in that room. So yeah. But yeah, no, he was like, so they're just like, the studio guys, they, put on gloves, washed the thing with alcohol wipes for hours, sounded nice and crystal clear again. What a story, though. What a story. That or someone was stashing it in the mic. I mean, sure. I see your problem. You have the mic set to cocaine. Here's your problem. You've got about a half a kilo of blow shoved into your mic. That guy in the Hawaiian shirt with a porno stash that was in here working on the microphone earlier, what's his deal? Well, he did leave a post-it note requesting a lot of Glenn Frey tracks to be played. Oh yeah, we're moving on up there. We're at 4253, I think. I'll have to check the submission count. Because all of you who subscribed can meet me. You can have the meet and greet with me at GaryCon when I'm up there this year. I'm just kidding. Walk up to me, say hello. I'm not a celebrity. Yeah, Clapton. Yeah, that's kind of by definition. Let me see. So let's see. Where are we at? Where are we at? YouTube. Come on, YouTube. 4253. We're at 4,253 subscribers. Matt, that thing was bouncing between 4249 and 4250. I was like, hey, 4250. And then I'd go take a dump, work on something, play some Doom, look back over, drop back down one. I think there was just somebody screwing with me. Just subscribe. He should check it right about now. Unsubscribe. Subscribe. Did cocaine bury the? I don't think cocaine buried the mic. I don't think he was an itch in his daddy's fur at the time. Yes, 4.25 thousand subs. John Walker, take care. Thank you for sticking around. It was a lot of fun. Dungeon Minister, you did a fair amount in the theater. Well, take it easy, Padre. You don't want to enhance your performance too much there. Yeah. Oh, hello. That's my wife's cat. If you guys hear that meowing. What? 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 All right, RPG Grandma, we'll see you around. Careful, don't knock the pint glasses over. There you go, sweetie. Yeah, you guys, hey, go subscribe to Dungeon Minister. Yeah, how cool would that be? Is everybody is subscribed to my channel? If everybody subscribed to my channel, if you're not already, went and subscribed to Dungeon Minister's channel, go, my legions, my swarms, go forth and subscribe to Dungeon Minister's channel. Lift his channel up. Ha 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 ha. Speaking of things that lift this channel's up, that you're caught. Your little claw is caught. Okay. Anyway, what is it? Oh, right. We actually have a sponsor for this video these days, and I want to say thank you to our friends at Hellebarde Games. That's right. This live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde Games makes the kind of adventures that they'd like to play, whether it's for 5th editions, for Castles and Crusades, or for the OSR. Old school rules are in play at the table, and you can check them out at hellebardegames.com or on DriveThruRPG, hellebardegames.com. And there's a pretty good module that they have by me there too, in addition to all the other stuff. So go forth, subscribe to Dungeon Minister. You don't have a choice, by the way. If you're not subscribed to Dungeon Minister, subscribe to his channel. That's an order. So please do that. I want to see his numbers go up. I'm going to Dungeon Minister's YouTube channel right now, and I'm going to hit refresh a few times, and I want to see those numbers go up. You guys keep talking about Hickman, and I keep seeing Hackman. And now I'm just picturing DMing like with Gene Hackman. Because it could be fun, or it could be like enraging. Not enraging in a negative experience, but like Hackman rage, you know? You know what I'm talking about. When am I going to do something, a deep review of something from Hellebarde? I have some Hellebarde projects that I could do a review of. I gotta see, here's the thing. I have to maintain objectivity because they're an advertiser, but Dawn is also my friend and I have written for them. So you can see where I need to be careful with my, I need to be careful with my choices. So I would like to see, 1.43K subscribers, Dungeon Minister. It just went up a little bit. Dude, you have a back catalog that is better than many players. So yeah, 1.43K. Keep it going. Keep putting the word out there. If you're just driving by to watch this, please support the Dungeon Minister. And when he live streams, he does not live stream nearly as much as I do. I don't know why the hell you don't. But anyway, when he does, jump on his streams and super chat. That's for Father Aaron. That is something you should do. You've mentioned that a few times, Michael Connor, tonight. And someone said they enjoyed the Hickman modules more than Gygax's. Get out. No, I'm kidding. Enjoy what you enjoy. I'll tell you this. My dear friend Eric, may he rest peacefully. My dear friend Eric, his dungeon master was Tracy Hickman. And one of the greatest compliments I ever got was, you, Bill, and Tracy are the best DMs I've ever had. Like, he said to me, you're as good a DM as Tracy Hickman was. Interestingly, when Eric played for Tracy Hickman, this is when Tracy like ran D&D games at a comic shop in Utah that Tracy would frequent. Tracy Hickman was a brutal classic D&D DM. Like TPK, no problem. Tomb of Horrors, no problem. Wipe your party out in G3, no problem. So I know a lot of people throw some shade at Dragonlance, but Tracy Tracy ran the classics and loved the classics. He just did something different to create it. Oh, see, those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up. I'm sitting here hitting refresh, guys. 1.43K is nice. Let's 1.4K. Do you think maybe that's doable? That's absolutely doable, guys. That's like that's like 10 more subs, I think. Is it? Yeah, that's like 10 more subs. Go subscribe over to Dungeon Minister's channel, please. There's 10 of you out there watching this stream right now, live right now, who are not subscribed to Dungeon Minister. I can almost guarantee it. Go subscribe. Throw some shade at Dark Sun. Dark Sun was never my jam. I respect Dark Sun. Don't get me wrong. It's completely different. I mean, you know, the thinly veiled Arthurian fantasy number 1496, or something that just completely dumps the toy box out on you. I respect Dark Sun for what Dark Sun is capable of doing, and yes, it had phenomenal artwork on it. Lexi, if you push those pint glasses off, I'm going to be very, very sad. I mean, I appreciate it, right? I appreciate what it is. I'm moving these glasses over here. I appreciate what it is. I appreciate what it did. It's not my jam, you know. I'm not like, I hate that, you know. I'm not going to say it's too problematic. It just wasn't my cup of. If you had to hook me in to something, you're like, look, it's a D&D rules, but it's gonna be something different. I'll make it your choice on what you want to be different. I would probably jump into Planescape before Dark Sun, but I would jump into Dark Sun well before Spelljammer. Spelljammer, man, Spelljammer is one of those things that, like, it's like British pizza, you know? It's like, oh, bacon and beans on your pizza. You like that, right? No, I don't. Spelljammer, not my cup of. Dungeon Minister, do you do all of your own video effects? Do you do all your own stunts, Dungeon Minister? There's the question. Does Dungeon Minister do his own stunts? I've heard of Mutant Epoch, but I've never seen it. Trying to pick up a glass here. It didn't break, but it did fall over. There was nothing in it. It's safe. So here's an interesting bit about trivia, and this is backed up by people who worked at TSR back in the day. There's this perception that Greyhawk was left to left to rot on the side of the road, that Forgotten Realms was vastly more popular. It wasn't. Greyhawk, the sales of Greyhawk related material, even the little bit that they were releasing, nearly matched sales of Forgotten Realms material. There was never a fallow period for Greyhawk. Forgotten Realms was a little bit more popular. Or keyboard. No, that's the microphone full of Coke, Dungeon Minister. That's the microphone full of Coke. Could you crowdfund buying Greyhawk for me? I would feel better if you bought Greyhawk and gave it to Gary's children. Heidi, Elsie, Cindy, Luke, Ernie. And yes, even Alex, if you wanted in on it. But like everything, they're not going to let it go. Ever, 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 ever. They're never going to let anything go. You know, it's like, well, we say Dark Sun is too problematic. Oh, okay, cool. So you'll be getting rid of it. Nope. We're going to sit on it forever. Because that's what companies do. Let me tell you. Oh, I want someone who will do something with it too. But Magix Pro, that sounds interesting. Does the church approve of your use of Magix, Dungeon Minister? Yeah, no, I mean, believe me, I would love it if someone would actually do something with Greyhawk. I mean, you know, we can't do anything with Greyhawk that's got A1 through A4 in it. And, well, I stop by the Grey House when I visit Lake Geneva and so shoot a video. The Grey House? You mean Gary's house? I don't want to intrude on the people that live there. I might take a couple of pictures of the outside. Oh, I know what I was going to mention. Used to be that there was a touring area you could go through and watch Disney animators do their thing. Obviously, it was heavily mirrored glass, and you know, but you went there and you watched animators working on stuff. Now, what stuff they were working on there? Here are animators working on animated pieces for Disney. They're not going to show you like a new. That's like trade secret stuff. But one thing over all the Mickey Mouses and Little Mermaids and blah, 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 blah stuff that they were actually animating, there was a workstation close to the window. And I looked down, and there are, I'm not kidding you, not origami, but papercraft Macross or Robotech or Battletech miniatures, like 3 or 4 of them. Someone had done papercraft versions of them in like dark olive drab green and had them set up on their workstation. And you know, I asked the guy, I'm like, is that for a project or something? Well, you never know what we have, you know. Thank you. But later, I had a dear friend. I hope I still have a dear friend. I haven't talked to him in forever. But had a dear friend, and he and I talked about that, and he said that Disney creates and buries tons of stuff. He said, yeah, there probably was like animation workups done for some kind of stompy giant robot thing. they paid the animator who did it a good chunk of money. They bought it from him, and it will go into a vault in Disney forever. It belongs to Disney, so he can't work on it now. So yeah, he might have done some art. He might have made those for something Disney-esque. Oh yeah, we'll do that. Work on that. That's nice. We'll just take that, and you continue drawing Figment or Little Mermaid or whatever. And then into the vault it goes. So that was it. Someone asked about the Gord the Rogue, the Gord the Rogue modules, or books. They're not great fantasy literature, but they're fun to read, sure. Sorry, I'm just reading your chats and whatnot. Let's see. Talk to Clownfish about that. They just pay out the contract and pull it out later and do not pay. Oh yeah, I'm sure that I'm absolutely certain that Disney would buy you out for a lump sum and then later, here's your idea. That's why the original Dark Tower, it has not to do with Disney, but that is why Dark Tower is so expensive. So here's what happened with Dark Tower. Two guys approached Milton Bradley and said, have we got a fantasy game for you? You can get in on this fantasy kick. It's a little computer, a little breadboard computer. It's in a castle-looking doohickey, and it's the Dungeon Master, and they pitched it, and Milton Bradley listened to their pitch and said, nah, we're not really interested in fantasy games, and we're not really interested in that kind of electronic game. Thanks, no thanks. And then they released Dark Tower. And of course, greetings, Patty. Good to see you. Welcome back, by the way. So Milton Bradley, yeah, they released Dark Tower, and these guys get himself a lawyer and sue them. Then the judge is like, yeah, they absolutely stole this from you. So that is that is what and why, the how and the why about Dark Tower. And the judge slapped him with a cease and desist. You got to pay these guys. You got to pay these guys a ton of money if you're going to keep selling this. And Milton Bradley said, I'm sorry, a ton of money if we what? If you're going to keep selling this, you got to pay them a ton of money. Oh, okay. Yoink! And that was the end of Dark Tower. Hey, Patty, are you subscribed to Dungeon Minister's channel on YouTube? Here, I'll put the link up. If you're not, please go subscribe to his channel right now. I'd love to see him get 1.44K subs before the end of the night. Good. Go over there and do that. Go subscribe. How many subs you sitting at, Dungeon Minister, right now? All we see is like 1.43K. Thank you. Make sure Bill realizes drag him by his ear. Wait, what are you guys talking about doing to me now? What's your hard kink that you're working on? Oh, I'm sorry. If you're talking about I mean tomorrow. If you're talking about TSR3's museum in Lake Geneva. I'm not going. So, you know, I'm not doing that. Oh, you're on. Okay. Now, there are a couple of gaming-related things that I will check out while I'm in Lake Geneva. Fear not. Fear not. It's not a museum. It's an encounter. I don't want to get unpleasant iBoard game. I don't. Road March, I watch a lot of stuff, but The Minister was my first sub. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you're subbed here too, right? I mean, trust me, there's no negativity or ire directed at you for asking. That's just fine. Jack Photon, good to see you. Forgotten Realms equals outward face of the corporate usurper that kicked Gary out. Greyhawk 4 ads. Go subscribe to Jack Photon's channel too. Jack's not doing YouTube. It's fine. It's just kind of a joke. Yeah. All right, Grand Putty, thank you for stopping by. I think this was the first time we saw you. Everybody say goodbye to Grand Putty. Grandpa Ty. Is it Grandpa Ty? Grandpa Ty? Or is it Grand Putty? I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Your true neutral had to unsub from you to unsub to the done. No, please, no. You can be subbed to both our channels. You didn't have to do that. Why? Why? No, my channel blew up when I basically, as I described it today, to someone I was talking about, some folks who are going to come on the show. Grandpa Ty, okay. But what? Oh, I saw Michael Connor. I thought, sorry, I had a brain fart there. Never mind. Yes, Ty Beard and more Grandpa Ty. When two ties go to war. I forgot what I was saying. Let me see if I can scroll up a little and remember that. Talking about subscriptions and that sort of thing. Oh, yeah, right. So back like on January 17th, I did a video that says that was titled Wizards of the Coast Employees in Revolt. They're not going to take it anymore. That video hit the algorithm because Wizards of the Coast was literally screwing up on an hourly basis and leaks were just flying out. And I commented on some leaks that had come out and been reported on by Kotaku or Polygon or somebody like that. And that video got 58,000 views. Well, it's gotten 58. It may be more now. And I remember sitting over there at the PC and I had the channel activity thingamabob open that shows like subscriptions. And I went to the page that just auto updates. It's just a graph that auto updates. And it was like watching the odometer of a car that was driving at like 300 miles an hour. It was literally just just ticking up and up and up and up and up. But I knew then, and it kind of started to slow down, and then Wizards of the Coast did something else stupid, and it got reported on, and I did a video about it, and just on. And every time I do it, there'd be more and more subs, and I knew based on what they were telling me, WotC sitting on Mystara, Birthright, Al-Qadim, Karatur, Ravenloft. Well, no, because I guess they've done yet another thing with Strahd. Greyhawk. I don't know. But I was just watching it, and every time I would drop a video, it'd be like bum, 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 just the numbers of subs. But I knew then, I remember telling myself, it's gonna slow down. This high that you're feeling right now, this rush that you're chasing by dropping, and there were days back in January and early February, I was doing like 5 or 6 videos a day. I was like, they can't keep screwing up forever. It will slow down. So all of you folks who thought that by June I might have the 10,000 subs, no. The plot has, that is the line plot, has descended on subscriptions quite a bit. I'm not complaining. I am extremely thankful. That huge amount of traffic, plus y'all's outpourings and super chats and everything else, have they've been lifesavers. They really have, and if it just flatlines, if I just sit at 42 something, and it just like occasionally I get 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that, then that's how it goes, because that's where I started, and I'm trying not to tie myself in knots over it. I'm trying to remind myself that the ride had to end, Bill, because let's be honest. We're talking about a channel where my main focus for you guys is first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so it's a niche. Dungeons and Dragons is a niche hobby. Okay, sure, but there's channels, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they get tens of thousands of views every video. Right. But they're talking about new Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, all right. So, but hundreds of thousands of subs in a field where there's people who have hundreds of millions of subs. So, and none of this is a complaint. This is just this is an explanation to you guys. Have I looked at Savage Worlds? I have not looked at I have played a couple of Savage Worlds games, Michael, but I have not. The rules being explained to me as we played. So, D&D, niche hobby. Older versions of D&D, niche. Oldest versions of advanced D&D, niche. Okay? Now, that can break one of two ways. People go, nobody else is talking about this. You've just about got a corner market on first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Bill. Yeah, but it's also because not a lot of people do want to talk about it. So I'm fully aware that there is a market saturation point. But closing this window, which I do right now, closing that window and looking at you guys, looking out at you guys, not here, not at metrics. How I say niche? I know it's the wrong way. I get it. Powerful Silencer of the Alamo. That is a frightening username. I love it. I care about positivity, and I care about you guys, all 4,253 of you. And if there never comes a 4,254, I'll care just as much still. All right. The day before that hit piece dropped on how awful the OSR is from PBS NewsHour, the months before Wizards of the Coast decided to take the golden goose out and start bashing on her neck, I was unaware of any of that. And I was just sailing right along. I'd think about the numbers occasionally, but I thought more about you guys, and I still think more about you guys. I said it to a buddy of mine today. If I woke up and I had 500,000 subs, I would be elated, but then I would be kind of down because I would know that opens up a gulf between me and you guys. Yes, I have worked in the industry, Drone Swarm. I still work in the industry. Dungeons and Dragons. It's just me loving games. That's right. Thank you. Get into it. I will keep doing what I'm doing. I don't intend to stray. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anyone. Okay, Kabuki Kid wants to know what's with the crab. Kabuki Kid, do you have a copy of / are you familiar with the classic AD&D module White Plume Mountain? Because that will tell me how deep I have to go in to that. Calvinoni, I just got here. Greetings. So I have a biblical module I'd like you to review, Dungeon Minister. Oh yeah, Bill, that's nice. It's based on the Song of Solomon. Hello? Hello? Is the camera still on? Dungeon Minister, where'd you go? And now you know what it's from. Yes, it's from. So yes, that is the crab from the Boiling Bubble. See, this little guy is just plastic and pre-painted. It's like something you get for a seafood restaurant. You know, it's just like, okay, I'm going to buy a fishing net, a freeze-dried starfish, some seahorses, and I guess a plastic crab. We'll put that in there. It's cheaper than I didn't have a 3D printer at the time. It's cheaper than a metal mini that would be like a third or even a quarter of the size, and I would have had to have painted. So just like boom, pre-painted giant crab. I should give him a little sign. Maybe put a little flag in his claw to hold up. I've had a couple of people ask me, "Oh, are you from Maryland? Maryland blue crab? You know, or are you a sport fisherman?" No, it's just a refugee from White Plume Mountain. A freeze-dried Canada Goose. Yeah, I believe it. Oh yeah, I should put Black Razor in his claws. Just 3D print a little sword. It's a portable hole into the bag of holding. I would say it's either. Just my DM rule. So, Drone Swarm, you asked if I worked in the industry. Yes. I worked for Troll Lord Games, or I worked for Gary Gygax under the auspice of Troll Lord Games. Gary passed away. Gail went nuts and took away Troll Lord Games license, so nothing I ever did for Gary got published, except a few, more than a few years later, back in 2019. Was it 2019? I think it was 2019. I published The Lost Crypt, which is a dungeon section of the Teeth of the Barkish Nor. Now, if you want to know what the Teeth of the Barkish Nor are, owl bears, James Seymour. I'm printing owl bears. If you crack open your Dungeon Master's Guide, the Teeth of the Delver Nar. Gary originally called them the Teeth of the Barkesh Nor. And I had, for a while, the scans of Gary's notes for where they were to be found by adventuring in Castle Greyhawk. So the dungeon section that I wrote specifically, and you can get it from Frog God Games if you want just a tiny little piece of Castle Greyhawk. You can go to Frog God Games and buy The Lost Crypt by Bill Sylvie. They have it for Swords and Wizardry, which is really close to AD&D, or for 5th edition D&D. I didn't write the 5th edition version. I wrote the module for AD&D. Insider Baseball, everything I wrote for Gary, even when I was doing Castles and Crusades stuff, I used the Dungeon Master's Guide as my guidebook and statted everything AD&D, and then sent it on to them, and they had people who converted it over to Castles and Crusades. So after that, after Troll Lord Games, but well before that got published, I also worked with Lance Havermail for Necromancer Games and published half of a module with him under, the whole module got published. I wrote half of it under the name Andy Luke Crossness. I wrote under a pen name and published the Black Tower, which is a chapter in Elemental Moon, which I finally got a physical copy of a few months ago. Thank you so much, Doomsword. And let's see. I allowed one of my Greyhawk modules to be reworked for not Greyhawk, but published by my friends over at Hellabard Games. Don McVitie published Temple of the Sun, which if you poke around the web, you can find the Greyhawk version, but please support Hellabard Games and purchase a copy from them. For Osric, it'll still be AD&D. You will have to re-Greyhawkify it yourself. But I've written some articles for Matt Finch's Knockspell magazine. I self-published 5 modules, which, again, you can find the PDFs of them around the web somewhere. Was it 5 modules? No, it was 6 modules. It was DD1, DD2, and then WGH 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. WGH2 is Temple of the Sun, and it does not relate to WGH 3, 4, and 5. So I guess it was 6. So you can get you can get some Greyhawk modules that I wrote. And I'm currently supposed to be working on manuscripts for some people. Yes, all the time, James. They're currently they're currently in the infested cisterns of the city of Greyhawk right now. But no, they have ventured far and wide across the Flannis. You wrote scripts. What's a script you wrote, Drone Swarm? Tell us. Tell us a script you wrote, if you can. But that's about me. Oh, good Lord. Why did you guys not tell me that I'd been running my mouth for almost 2 hours? Why? Nothing. I gotcha. Flannis is best flan. Flan. I think he probably meant film scripts, James. So as much fun as it is hanging out with you guys, and we peaked out at like 45 folks here on the on the live chat, unless you guys have something pressing, nobody was keeping time of how long we were spending in the dungeon. Take care, Patty. I'm right behind you, to be honest. Never interrupt someone who's doing what you want him to do. Is that Sun Tzu? Gesundheit. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and scoot on out of here. It's been 2 hours, and honestly, I'm a little hungry. I'm feeling a little peckish, so I'm gonna go. I got some ziti sitting in the fridge. I'm gonna have some of that. Oh, more detail. Okay, more detail about the modules I wrote. Okay, so DD1 and DD2 are singular adventures for Dungeon Master and player. WGH2 is find the MacGuffin in the abandoned ruins in the desert. WGH3 through WGH5 are set in Greyhawk in the Howling Hills, and you're going up because the Kingdom of Ayuz has sent troops into the Howling Hills, and they've taken over places that are sacred to the wolf nomads, and you have to kick them out of these sacred temples and crypts. And there are 3 modules in succession until you face the big bad monster at the very end. So there you go. Now I'm going to be done. It is after 10 here. I can't end this. Oh, that's right. I did make a commitment. Come on. If you're not subscribed to Dungeon Minister's channel, go subscribe to Dungeon Minister's channel. 1.44K. 1.44K. Subscribe to Dungeon Minister's channel. I'll put it in the chat again. If you're interested in supporting this channel, let me see if I can find this. And you'd like to help me out in my quest to go to, which is largely complete, I should point that out. But if you'd like to contribute, Night RPG Grandma. If you would like to contribute to the GoFundMe for the Bills game and GaryCon weekend, there you can contribute to that. You contribute to that there, rather. I don't get to eat till yeah. You can click the subscribe button if you haven't clicked the subscribe button here already. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Click the bell icon for notifications. Wait, he's there? Let me check. Boom! Made it. Good night. I'm going to go get dinner now. He is there. But you can support us on Patreon. Throw me a tip on PayPal. buymeacoffee.com/bsylvie. Or you can support us on Subscribestar. And that is all. Those are all very awesome ways you can support me and the show. And that is very cool if you can do that. But for now, I'm gonna get out of here. Like I said, go get something to eat. And listen, I love all you guys. I really do. So take care of yourselves, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back, and it'll be much the same as tonight. Until then, peace and take care.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the